Hey guys, welcome back to tacNtrack. Today we're continuing our World War II series and we're going to have a brief discussion on this little guy. This is the French 1935S. So let's hop into it. As you guessed it, 1935 rolls around. The French are looking for a semi-automatic firearm to replace some of their revolvers for their military service. They look at the US 1911 designed by John Moses Browning and they go, hey, we really like that. We want something like that that's a homegrown French design. So several design bureaus take off. They start looking at designs. The French 1935A model actually takes precedence. These start getting produced in the ramp up to World War II. They take a look at the second place guy here, the French 1935S model, and they go, you know what? That's not our favorite gun, but we want that one too. The A model actually continues in production through World War II. Even once the Nazis have occupied France, they continue producing that pistol, and they actually issue it to some of their troops as well. This little guy actually picks up post-World War II again, starts going back into production for the French as they're looking for arms in the post-war world. By the way, we'll see these pop back up again in Vietnam because don't forget the French fought there ahead of the US entry into the war. So we'll see these guys pop back up in Vietnam as well. Pretty straightforward 1911 style designs besides a few things. We don't have a back grip safety back here on the back. It's dimensionally quite a good deal smaller. It actually feels a little bit better in your hand, but like the 1911s, the time period, no extended beaver tail back here. The one big gripe that I have with this design is your safety. It sits right up here. This is actually the safe position, and all it does is block the hammer. So let's double check this firearm one more time. 100% empty. Safety is on. And I pull the trigger here. Hammer still drops. Now there's a bar that comes back and actually blocks that from hitting the firing pin. That's not my favorite design. And so let's look at it. Take this hammer back here. Let's look at what happens when we flip this up. This little guy is just kind of hanging out up here. It's kind of in the way, hanging out up here when this handgun is on the fire position. This is not my favorite setup. One thing I do like, however, is there's a loaded chamber indicator on the top of the firearm. So that is nice. The trigger also is set up a little bit differently than a 1911. And it hinges instead of pulls straight back like a 1911 style trigger. So there are some kind of big design differences between them. One thing I really want to point out on the differences between this and a 1911 as we're talking about it is the round. This is chambered in 7.65 French long. And we'll take a look at that next to a 45, obviously significantly smaller diameter. Now, if you guys have one of these, there is currently ammunition out there on the market that you can get. If Ian over at Forgotten Weapons doesn't shoot at all, there is some ammunition that is available that you can get. We actually had to back order this, and one of the reasons we haven't talked about this before now is I wasn't sure I was going to be able to get ammunition in for it in time for our shoot. Fortunately, we were able to get some boxes. Ammunition is expensive for these guys, and while they're currently making it, I actually think Ian over at Forgotten Weapons had a good deal to do with getting this ammunition back made into the market. While ammunition's available, you should probably buy some and stockpile it if you've got one of these. If you don't have one of these, they're pretty hard to come by. They're pretty hard to find. Replacement parts are extremely hard to find. As a matter of fact, as we look at this particular example, we'll notice that the safety on this one is actually brazened. It's had a repair there That is the only repair that I was able to find on it. This particular example, the finish isn't particularly good on, but it's not bad either. And there's another thing about this particular example. This is one of 2 guns that we will be shooting in a World War II competition that aren't authentic. This particular example was actually produced in 1947. So it's just post-war. There's no design changes. And I think this is a good representation of the firearm and will serve our role in what we're doing here quite nicely. But do know this is actually a post-war example. We'll talk about the 1897 12 gauge when we get to that one. But this is actually a post-war example. Guys, like always, thank you so much for checking us out on tacNtrack. Please, if you enjoy this kind of content, check out some of our other videos. Please subscribe. This series has been very expensive for us, so please, if you're interested in this kind of stuff, please support us. Thanks so much for checking us out today on tacNtrack.